What is going on, everyone? Tim from Tearfon Orbital. I'm taking another liberty today. I do what I want. So, I'm taking a liberty and I'm talking about a personal hilt of mine. This is a very personal hilt because there's a crystal chamber. I can't talk this morning. I haven't had my coffee yet. A crystal chamber that was machined by a good friend of mine, Jeremy, over at Solo Sabers. So Jeremy machined a crystal chamber for this Mark 1 by Roman Props. He did this for me a while ago. I just have not had time to actually install it for myself, but I actually took time for myself over this past weekend to finish the install, and I'm really happy that I actually got it done, right? So Obi's hilt from the original trilogy is my second favorite hilt. Okay, so my favorite hilt is Luke's Graflex from the original trilogy. That's my favorite hilt, right? My second favorite hilt is Obi-Wan's hilt. There's just something about the original trilogy hilts that speak to me from a prop standpoint. They are made with real world parts. They're beautiful in my opinion, right? And Obi-Wan's hilt, this thing is awesome. Roman Props, in my opinion, make the best, closest, most accurate props, prop replicas rather. So I really wanted to get my hands on a Roman's Mark 1 and I wanted to get it installed, but I wanted to put a reveal in it. So I have a V2 with a Pando crystal reveal in it, but I wanted to do a crystal reveal for this one as well. Prior to getting this hilt, Jeremy had done a commission for a customer of his with a machined crystal reveal, and I really wanted something like that. So Jeremy obliged and did something very nice for me. So I'm really happy with it, right? So I want to come into Fusion and talk about this chassis. It is a very small chassis. Anyone who has installed the V2s or the Mark 1s knows that there is not a lot of real estate in these hilts, especially if you're doing a crystal chamber, right? So if you're not putting a crystal reveal on this, you've got plenty of room to put your battery up here and put your board down below, right? But if you're taking up all of the real estate up here for a crystal chamber, there's not a lot of room to play with, right? So I do want to talk about this little baby chassis that I did for this hilt, and then we will come up top, do a quick demo, and we'll be on our way, right? So let's come into Fusion. Okay, so here it is. Very simple yet effective chassis. I call this the noisy cricket. So this is very small, okay? 18350 battery, obviously, tilted Proffi set up to save me a little bit of room. Not a whole hell of a lot going on here. Not room for a kill switch. Like I can't even put a kill switch down below. There's no room. There's just no room for a kill switch. I probably could have saved you some time and not even come into Fusion to show you this. I mean, there's just nothing else to go over, right? This upper section, this is where I make a connection to the upper part of the hilt, the cage, if you will, part of the hilt that is held in place with a set screw. I also just E6000 this in place as well, just to help keep it secure. Okay, the proffieboard does peak just up underneath the threading, so we can still have board and USB port access. And that's it. I did some very light greebly work. I actually printed this off. Am I making you dizzy? I actually printed this off, the whole chassis, in PLA carbon fiber. And I'm actually really happy with the fact that I got some detail out of these greeblies in PLA. So really happy with how that came out. But that's it. Very simple. So let's come on top. Okay, so here it is, right? I'm gonna actually get my other Obi down here. So a little comparison here. So this is the first Obi that I ever got in my collection. This is the Corbinth Obi-1, I think it's called. I think, probably getting that wrong. So I purchased this. This is one of my first purchases for my own collection, right? I weathered this myself. I really like the weathering job on this one. I mangled the shit out of this hilt. Okay, if I recall correctly, I actually painted, I think I aluminum blacked this upper grenade section. No, actually this is probably steel. So what I think I did was I did a burnt sienna wash while the paint was still wet. I took a blowtorch to it just to make it look really, really gross and like crusty. The Graflex section was heat stained. Lower heatsink section was that same blowtorch treatment. The sink knob section, I think I took like a burr grinder to. Just I really, really mangle the heck out of this thing. This is actually really dusty. I haven't taken it down in a while. So yeah, I weathered this myself. It's a very, very old install. But one of the things I really liked about the Corbanth version of this hilt was the resistors of the transistors were actual buttons. So I did like that about their version of this hilt. Okay. So with the Romans version, this one is beautiful, right? I chose to not weather this one. So I do like the way it looks unweathered and clean. I did make a couple, nope, just the one modification. I added the Hales ring up top here. Romans does provide these that you can just add to the wind vane up top. I just added that myself, and obviously I added the transistors as well, or the resistors. I never remember what these are called, right? But I do, one of the things I actually tried to do prior to doing this install was design some sort of plunger switches. I've heard people, and I've seen in threads, people talk about trying to do switches that look like these resistors before. I tried my best to get some design. Like I did a bunch of designs in Fusion. I printed off a bunch of prototypes, but I just couldn't get it right? I couldn't get it right with clearances that would be able to work with the cage and where my proffi was, or where my chassis was. So I chose to just forego that, and I wired up my switches the way I usually do with these installs. There is a switch holder underneath this bubble strip that holds two tactile switches, okay, with two springs that keeps the bubble strip in place. Another thing that you have to do with these installs is sand down your bubble strip so it gets a little bit of play. So I wet sanded the bubble strip. Where I have those tactile switches, they just so happen to sit underneath a cavity where each one of those bubbles are. So it made it so that when you pushed that bubble strip down, it wasn't hitting the tactile switch. So what I have to do is I have to fill the cavity of this bubble strip on the reverse side with resin and cure it. That way it's perfectly flat on the other side, right? And then wet sand it to make sure it's clear. So that's what I did for the bubble strip. And that's it, right? Unweathered. So let's talk about the chassis. Here's the chassis. Just a simple black PLA carbon fiber. Here's my 18350 battery. This is actually from John at Sabers Forever. So John did the install on my DL180, and he sent this battery with it. And I don't have an 18350 that looks this good. I like the wrap that he has with this, so I use this for my videos and my glams. So anyhow, 18350 build. There's that proffi just kind of peeking right up underneath those threads. Okay. Let's get a look at this crystal chamber. So I'm gonna loosen this clamp. This is another thing I love about both, all of the original trilogy hilts. Like, it's just this tactile, utilitarian feel of the hilts, right? Like, you got to undo a clamp to open them up. Like, it's just, they feel like weapons. Like, it's like taking a magazine out of a gun, right? So here is that machined crystal chamber. This is from Jeremy over at Solo Sabers. So this has been done in aluminum. The inner core of this crystal chamber is in brass. So I didn't want to keep this shiny. I wanted to weather this crystal chamber. So I did a passive aluminum black on the outside and brass black for that brass crystal chamber. I did design a very simple PCB holder up top for that lit PCB, and instead of just doing a regular blade side PCB up top, I did a hilt side PCB so we get some shine while the upper part of the hilt is off. There is a 28mm Elite speaker from Smuggler's Outpost inside of this clamp section. Another really, really great thing about this crystal chamber is that Jeremy put a cavity up underneath it, kind of like how Rudy Pando does his, but Jeremy put more than enough room up underneath there for a 28mm speaker and enough room for me to get my leads past that speaker, right, to do all my wiring. And that's it. Great hilt. Okay. So I did do a custom blade plug for this one as well. This is just the stock plug that comes with the hilt, and I made a custom resin core. Oh, I got the wrong. I made a custom resin core that goes underneath it. And also, this is not going to come out on camera. There's a very small brass watch part in the middle just for some detailing, right? And that's it. So let's come down to the bottom. I just love the feel of this hilt. Like the feeling of the grenade section. It just... love it.
Oh, don't worry. I felt a great disturbance in the force.
All right. I do have a recessed blade. Let's put a blade in it. Just so happens to be made by Jeremy as well, right? So another thing about thin neck hilts is that they are typically very, very shallow blade holders, right? So you really want a recessed blade to get as much surface area to bite down on that blade as you can. So I like that we have a recessed blade for this one. What else we put on here? I think I put mostly original trilogy fonts on here. Some rotoscope.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon?
Whoops. Whoops. One more. Oops.
I'm Luke Skywalker.
There we go. Awesome. Awesome hilt. So, that is it. That is my personal Mark 1 with a very personal crystal chamber done by the one and only Solo Sabers. So, I'm really happy that I finally got this one done. I'm happy to add it to my collection. I've said this before in previous videos of hilts of mine that friends have had a part in are very, very special. So this one will have a permanent home in my collection. That's very, very special to me. So I don't have a customer to thank, but I do want to thank everyone for watching. Obviously, if you're watching, thank you very much for this crystal chamber. It's been awesome to have in my collection. So thank you everyone for the support. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.